I have always been here.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing. And I am, of course, your host, the Ambassador. And Merry Christmas to everyone out there tonight. Hope you all are having a wonderful, no pun intended, Thursday evening. And tonight we are starting our annual Christmas celebration here on the Ambassador Wing, because here on the Ambassador Wing, yes, we do talk about pop culture, modern and retro, but here we also do celebrate the holidays, and we celebrate one of my favorite holidays, Christmas. And tonight we're kicking off a very ambassadorial Christmas, and we're going to be doing a review for honestly one of my all-time favorite Christmas movies, a true ultra retro classic, Frank Capra's It's a Wonderful Life. And you all might be wondering, Ambassador, why this movie? Why A Wonderful Life? For a number of reasons. As I said, it's one of my all-time favorites. I love this movie. I grew up watching this movie as a kid, and even though my mother and grandmother both watched it ad nauseum when they were growing up, because this movie is rather old, it is a black and white, I have watched it every year, well, almost every year since I was old enough to watch movies and process them, understand them. And tonight we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive. We're going to do some discussion. We're going to talk about why I love this movie, and if anybody decides to come in, they can share their thoughts. I have, of course, as always, um, put the link to the stream in the chat. So anybody that tunes in tonight, if you want to join me this evening for the discussion, the link is there. As always, by all means, use it. But yeah, honestly, this for me, it isn't just a great Christmas movie. It is a great movie in and of itself. And here is a little fun factoid, and there'll be several of these tonight for those of you that aren't aware. A Wonderful Life did not come out in Christmas time. It came out in 1946. Yes, that is a very, very, very long time ago. Long before any of us we weren't even alive. Most of our parents weren't even alive yet. Well, 1946, my mother ambassador would have been roughly a year old. And so and to the chat, just George. George, is good to see you, bud. Appreciate you stopping by tonight. And I'll pop your comment up here real quick. James Stewart is my favorite classic movie actor from the 1970s. He is great at any role, comedic, dramatic, thriller, you name it. I just love hearing that guy deliver lines. Yeah, George. And well, George, you're in good company tonight, because Jimmy Stewart, or James Stewart, as well, a lot of people knew him as Jimmy Stewart. And sorry for the train whistle in the background, folks. Can't help it. There's not a whole lot I can do about it. It's where I live. So, but yeah, George, you are in good company, because the name of Jimmy Stewart's character in this film was, of course, George Bailey. And as I was saying, one of the many reasons I love this film is it has a very interesting message to it, but it also has a lot of interesting themes in it as well. And it's also kind of it kind of stands unto itself in terms of the Christmas movie genre, because yes, it is a drama, but here's the interesting thing. It does have just a touch of a sci-fi element to it. I mean, it's also categorized, as I looked it up as I was doing research over the last few days for this movie, for my review tonight. It is categorized as a fantasy film. causing her, but I would say then not to say that that isn't an accurate um, categorization, but I will also say it has a touch of science fiction to it because it does deal with an alternate reality. And for those of you who aren't aware of the backstory of It's a Wonderful Life, it was based on a short story. Give me some. I've got all my information here. I just got to get it put together real quick. Just give me a minute. Um, hang on here. Hang on 1 second. Sorry. Just got to get where I need to be. There it is. That's not it. Okay. Okay. Here we go. This is the page I wanted. The story was written by a gentleman by the name of Philip Van Dorn Stern. And like I said, it's adapted from a short story written by Van Dorn. And I didn't have a chance to really do a whole lot of research on it. But the thing I found interesting about this movie is the fact that it actually did not do well at the box office originally in 1946. Now, obviously, 1946, the US was just now coming out of World War II. We were a year out of. But at the time, it made $3.3 million. I imagine that is adjusted for inflation. Um, Now, it did win a number of awards, or at least one. It won the Golden Globe for Best Director for a motion picture. Of course, that would go to Frank Capra, who is for those of you who don't know, he was in his time a very well known and well regarded director. And the thing I found interesting about this film, one of the main things I find interesting about this film, is it is primarily told through flashback. It's not necessarily told directly from the perspective of the main character, which is, of course, George Bailey, Jimmy Cooper's, or Jimmy Cooper. Well, Jimmy Stewart's character. I'm thinking of Gary Cooper. Sorry, another great old school director actor. And the thing I found really interesting is I've watched this movie over the course of my lifetime. I have come to identify at various times in my life with George Bailey because while the title of this movie is very hopeful, the majority of the movie is rather depressing. And you might ask yourself, well, Ambassador, if this is categorized as a Christmas movie, why isn't it more upbeat? Well, here's the interesting thing. I would put this film right alongside Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, because there are various similarities between It's a Wonderful Life and A Christmas Carol. You have a rather ordinary man in terms of George Bailey or Ebenezer Scrooge, who has a brush with the supernatural. And for Ebenezer Scrooge, it was the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. For George Bailey, it was his guardian angel. Now, there are threads of religious belief throughout this film. Obviously, the character of Clarence is George Bailey's guardian angel. And at the beginning of this movie, we hear many people in Bedford Falls praying for George Bailey. And those prayers reach heaven, or as they displayed in the film. All right, Zach. And hey, Zach, good to see you. Bah, humbug. Yeah, great line. The interesting thing is, as I was saying before Mr. Ebenezer Leary decided to come in. You have threads of religious belief, which in the 1940s was still rather prevalent in the U.S. And obviously, being this movie was made post World War II, that would make sense. But looking at this film now in the year 2021, so sometimes hard to believe I've been around that long. It's honestly, it's a very interesting snapshot of how the US viewed itself and how we looked at life. And you look at a character like George Bailey, who is a polar opposite to the character of Ebenezer Scrooge in a lot of ways. It's my Christmas Eve tradition to watch it. It's a Wonderful Life. George, that is a great tradition. Myself, I don't necessarily watch this on Christmas Eve. I will just pick a random day, but I do always watch it every Christmas. Just like I watch a Charlie Brown Christmas, just like I watch The Grinch, and so on. And honestly, there has been the rare occasion where I will watch this movie when it isn't the Christmas season. But primarily, I do watch it during this time of year because it is proof that one man or one person can make a difference, even if they don't realize it. And to kind of get back to my previous point, the fact that we have Christmas Day, it's a Christmas story for me. George, yeah, and for those of us that have cable or remember when cable was a thing, which it obviously still is, TNT and TBS would always run 24 hours of A Christmas Story. Yeah, George, I love that film too. I do. You'll shoot your eye out. You'll shoot your eye out. You'll shoot your eye out. Ha, ha, ha. But unfortunately for poor George Bailey, it wasn't so much that he was going to shoot his eye; he would lose an eye. He had lost hope. He was in a very dire financial situation. His family was in a very bad way, and the only way he saw out was to take his own life. But thankfully, to higher powers more powerful than George Bailey, he was prevented from doing this. And thanks to his guardian angel, Clarence, who was played by, give me just a minute, hang on, who was played by Henry Travers. And this, honestly, to kind of get into the cast a little bit, this was, for its time, it wasn't a particularly well-known cast, but it was a good, solid cast. I mean, of course, you had James Stewart as George Bailey, you had Donna Reed as Mary Hatch Bailey, you had Lionel Barrymore as the very dour and very business-minded Mr. Potter. As I say, you had Terrence Travers as Clarence. You had Thomas Mitchell as Uncle Billy Bailey. And, I mean, the list goes on. You had Ward Bond, who was a relatively well-known actor from the black and white era. Let's see who else was in here that might be of. I think those are only the big ones per se. Yeah. So, anyhow, but I think what this film really, like as I was saying, what this film, the message is trying to deliver is that one person's life may mean more than they may realize at the time. And concerning the course of George Bailey's life, he felt like his life had been just a waste. He felt the only way to rectify it was to take it. So what we have is we have Clarence using his divine powers as an angel to show George what would happen if he had never been born. Much like in the same way, the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future showed Ebenezer Scrooge the mistakes that he had made in his life, the impact that his choices have made on others. And, through the course of It's a Wonderful Life, we see both what actually does happen in George Bailey's life from the perspective of the angels, including Clarence. And you also, through Clarence's intervention, you see how Bedford Falls would have been irrevocably changed if George Bailey had never existed. Obviously, it had been turned into a very seedy, a very corporate, a very sleazy town by the acts of Mr. Potter. And looking at the flip side of that, you have the world in which George Bailey does exist. And while George is struggling himself, having trouble making ends meet, and everything else across the board, his life had such a powerful impact upon everyone else around them. And I think that is a very powerful message, regardless of the time of year, but I think especially at Christmas time. It's a message that we all may need to hear. And, I want to say this just to be a little, and well, you guys know me. Those of you that watch me on the regular know that I'm always authentic. I'm always 100% myself. Considering some of the stuff I've seen online lately regarding some other associates of mine and some friends, I think a movie like this is a much needed respite. A stream like this is a much needed respite from all the drama and fighting and back and forth and everything else that's been going on. In particular, I found out the other day that a fellow YouTuber, one that I sadly didn't get the chance to know better, passed away. And of course, I am referring to JJ of It's JJ. And I'd only had the opportunity to talk to JJ and stream with him on a few rare occasions. And I found out through a few friends, LDG of Geeks Enjoy Neurotica, and my friend Mountains of Elysium, one of my co-hosts on the Council of Ones when we do our Babylon 5 streams, that JJ passed away earlier this week. No, Marcus, I don't know, and quite frankly, at this moment, I don't particularly care. No offense. I'm talking about something that's a little more important than Marvel news. I didn't know JJ that well, but the impression I got from him was that he was a very decent man. And as I said, I only had the opportunity to stream with him on a few occasions, but it was always a good experience, both on when I was on his channel or when we were on someone else's. He always had a good joke, or he was always very down to earth. He reminds me very much of potentially how my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, would have been had I had the opportunity to know him in life. And yeah, CJH, hey, salute to JJ, absolutely. JJ was a singular individual, full of warmth and very jovial, but also very honest, very down to earth, very real. And for the little bit that I knew him, I will miss him most sincerely. So if anybody has the ability to do so, please pass the ambassadors my most sincerest condolences on to his family, to his loved ones. I don't know if he knew God or knew Christ. I pray that he did. But I also pray that even if he didn't, the Lord showed mercy upon him and allowed him into his kingdom. So, sorry guys, I don't usually like to be too depressing or anything. As I said, I try to keep these things upbeat. But when something like this happens, when an individual that, like JJ, who so many people knew, myself included, we lose one of our own. It's a hard thing. But to tie this back into the discussion of the movie tonight, of It's a Wonderful Life, George Bailey finally comes to realize just how much of an impact he did have on the world around him, on all the lives that he touched, not just of his wife and his children, but of everyone around him. And like I said, regardless of the time of year, but I think especially at this time of year, at Christmas time, during the Christmas season, during the season of Advent, it's good to reflect on the impact that we have on other people's lives and also reflect upon the people that we have around us and ask the question, is it good for me to be around a person? Is it a positive experience? Do they enrich my life? Do I enrich theirs? Because oftentimes we cast aside associations and friendships over the silly and trivial things. But the counter is also true. Sometimes we need to realize that there are those in our lives that we do need to put distance between us and them. And I know for a lot of people, the holidays are a very difficult time, a very painful time. I get that. Not everyone has the best experiences or the best memories of the holidays, particularly of Christmas. And for me, for those of you who don't know me that particularly well, and for those the rare few that do, Christmas time is always difficult for me because it was in December of 1984 that my father passed away. And for those who know the details, I won't rehash them here. But the one thing my father taught me, the one thing he instilled in me in his own way, was to not dwell on the bad in life, but to focus on what's good. And I think in terms of the movie, like It's a Wonderful Life, George Bailey lost sight of what was good in his life. He had a wife who loved him. He had children who cared about him. He had family and friends who loved him immensely and cared about him immensely. And even I think this movie has a very strong message of the idea that even one that we might regard as far off and distant in a way as God cares for his creation. Hence why God sent Clarence, the least likeliest angel you would ever suspect, but the angel that George needed. And number one, good to see you, and thank you for good to see you tonight, my friend, and thank you for popping in. And I'll pop your comment up here, CJ. This year I've made progress with my mental health. I hope going into 2022 it stays that way. Usually around this time of year I spiral downwards. CJ, as I said, I don't know what causes you to go that way. As I said, for me, Christmas is always a hard holiday. This time of year is always difficult because it always reminds me that of that time of year in my life in 1984 when my father died. And for the longest time, Christmas always was bittersweet. And to some degrees, it still is. But I know in my heart that my father would not want me to dwell on the fact that he is gone. Rather, he would want me to remember the good memories, remember all the good times we had together as a father and a son, as a family. And I know this is a bit off topic, but I will get back to the topic of the night. But this is one story I have not shared, and it is related to another movie that I am very fond of, that I love, and that I do regard as a Christmas movie, even though it's rather unorthodox. And that is, of course, Gremlins. Now, I made the misnomer on a few occasions, and I do apologize for this. Return of the Jedi was one of the last movies that we saw as a family. But Gremlins by Steven Spielberg and Joe Dante was the very last movie that we saw as a family. And I remember that night very vividly. We got all bundled up in our winter coats, got into the car, and went to the movie theater. And unfortunately, the showing of Gremlins that we were going to go to was sold out. We were staying out in the snow, and well, it was snowing, rather, I should say. Well, not that the snow was particularly deep, but it was snowing. And me and mom and dad, we were staying in the ticket line to go and see Gremlins. Unfortunately, once we got up to the window, we found out tickets were sold out. So we went to the nearby Dairy Queen and we got ourselves some hot chocolate and we waited around for the next showing. And I don't remember much because obviously I was rather young. I was 7 years old at the time. Well, 6 going on 7, regardless. And we drank our hot chocolate. We used the restroom, and me, mom, and dad, we head back over to the theater. We got in line, and this time we got in. And I remember sitting there between mom and dad with my popcorn and my soda, and sitting there watching Gremlins with them. And I remember to this day, at 43, I remember looking up in the darkened theater with nothing but the light of the screen illuminating their faces. Because I hadn't seen my father in a very long time because of his heart surgery and his rehab and everything. And to this day, I can still see his face. And I can see mom's face too. And I remember the conclusion to the movie where the little Chinese gentleman who owned the curiosity shop where Billy Peltzer's father had gotten him, the Mogwai, got him Gizmo. And I remember the old man saying, maybe someday you will be ready. There's the voiceover at the end by Hoyt Paxton, or Claxton, excuse me. And I still remember that very iconic electric synth score. And as we walked out of the theater, I was humming that, and that's kind of where the memory ends. But It's a memory that I hold very dearly to me, and I'm happy to share with you all. Getting back to the topic, and I'll bring up your comment here, CJ. 1 second. Movies can bring us all together and bring us good and bad memories. At least it does for me. I remember years connected to movie release dates. Some of my fondest memories are connected to movies. Oh, all right, hang on. Let me get your comment here, CJ. I may not be a Star Trek fan, but I remember fondly trying to watch it with my grandfather and getting into the Planet of the Apes because of him. I can understand that, CJ. Better than you understand. Oh, hey, here's number one. Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, number one. Good to see you, bud.
Yep. Yeah, I don't. I mean, yeah, it's been such a long time since I've seen Gremlins, but yeah, don't really remember much about it anymore. But
I remember I remember that movie as just as well as I remember It's a Wonderful Life, and that's for me. I know, like I said before you came in, yeah, I do consider it a Christmas movie. It is a very unorthodox Christmas movie, but there are elements in it that do harken very strongly to the Christmas season, obviously. And I would say, honestly, it is one of the very first in a long string of rather unorthodox Christmas movies. That, of course, being, well, obviously Gremlins, you've got Die Hard. The list goes on, honestly.
yeah, Die Hard's a definite one.
Yeah. But, but you look at a movie like It's a Wonderful Life, and it is like I said, a snapshot of post-war America.
Yeah. Now they
And
never did they never
mhm.
did colorize that, right?
I
Or
think
did
actually
they?
they may have. I think
Well,
Turner may have,
oh,
perhaps,
really?
but I don't think anybody else did.
Okay.
Because
If they did, I don't think I've seen the
well,
colorized version, which I would never want to see anyway. But
no, like Gage Cement, I'll look it up.
okay. I mean,
Let's see.
it's possible they didn't because it's such a classic,
Yeah, there are some movies that they would definitely not. Was it's so colorized? Actually, yeah. And it was remade in 1977. Well, wait a minute, that's not the same thing.
Yeah. Um,
No, it doesn't look like they ever did a color version of It's a Wonderful Life.
okay, that's
So,
good. They
yeah.
don't need to.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing, the film was eventually colorized, a version to be shunned. It was remade in 1977 for television as Happened One Christmas, starring Marlo Thomas in James Stewart's role. This comes from I think Vanity Fair. Capra did not give his blessing as Thomas relayed in her memoirs growing up laughing my story. Well, considering Frank Capra's clout and position in Hollywood back in the day, that doesn't necessarily surprise me because, well, let's be honest here. Frank Capra, he was a fairly well respected, and he did have a very solid career as a director. I know he did a lot of films for the war effort and so on. Hang on. Here's the funny thing, though. He didn't die until 1991. He was born May 18th in 1897 in Beninscio, Italy. Died September 3rd, 1991 in La Quinta, California. Twice married. I'm guessing both were not sure exactly why. But well, let's see. Let's bring up his awards first, and then we'll go into his movies.
You said they remade it?
They remade it, but he did not give his blessing.
Because I don't remember a remake of it. Well,
it was a made for TV movie.
Okay. Well, yeah,
that's probably why you don't remember it.
Yeah.
Let's see, awards. Academy Award for directing 1939, 1937, 1935. Golden Globe 1947 for
because only
Wonderful
remake,
Life.
I guess, of a Christmas movie I remember mainly is the Miracle on 34th Street remake of the original. You know.
Yeah. The original starring Maureen O'Hara and Natalie Wood, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. He got the 1982 AFI Lifetime Achievement Award, Golden Lion for Lifetime Achievement in 1982. Let's see, 1936 Medal of Special Recognition for Mr. Deeds goes to town. He did a lot of films, and he did pretty well for himself in terms of rewards and so on. Let's see. Of course, you've got It's a Wonderful Life. It Happened One Night. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. You Can't Take It With You. Mr. Deeds. Meet John Doe. Arsenic and Old Lace, which we actually have on DVD.
And John Doe, was that the remake of that they did into Meet Joe Black for John Doe?
Maybe. I'm not entirely sure. Let me click on it and we'll find out. Let's see. Meet Joe Black, romance, comedy, drama, 1941. Let's see. Here's the synopsis. Let's see. A reporter writes a fictitious column about a man named John Doe who claims to despair at America's neglect of little people and plans to kill himself. Of the little people and plans to kill himself. The newspaper then hires a ball player turned hobo to pose as John Doe in a series of radio addresses. No, that's not the one you're thinking of.
Okay.
So. But yeah, he starring in 42, he did a lot of war films. I guess you could almost call them propaganda pictures if you wanted to. If I can get it to come back up. Here we go. Let's see. In 42, he did Prelude to War. 1937, Lost Horizon. 1961, Pocketful of Miracles. 1933, Lady for a Day. Let's see. 1948, State of the Union. 1931, Platinum Blonde. Let's see. 1959, A Hole in the Head. A lot of smaller pictures, I would imagine. I mean, back in those days, they were probably pretty well known. Let's see. 1944, The Belle of Britain.
So he's done a lot with James Stewart in it as the main actor, right?
Well, he did two specifically. He did Arsenic and the Lace was Cary Grant.
Right.
Let's see. I mean, It's a Wonderful Life and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Those two were with Stewart. Let's see. It Happened One Night. Let's see who all's in that. I don't honestly know. Can't tell from here. Oh, let's see. Hang on. Cast. Oh, wait a minute. Just scroll down a smidge. Let's see. The cast was Clark Gable, Claudette Colbert, Alan Hale Sr., Walter Connolly, Roscoe Kearns. No sign of Stewart in that one. Meet John Doe had Gary Cooper as the leading man. Looks like he mostly worked, or Capra worked with either Gary Cooper, not Gary Cooper. Well, yeah, Gary Cooper, Clark Gable, or Cary Grant. Which, of course, back in those days
Okay.
wasn't terribly uncommon for your old school directors. They would have particular actors and actresses that they would work with.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
let's see. And Sir John, good to see you. Thank you for popping in. CJH, let's see. I remember It's a Wonderful Life being on TV as a kid, but I never really watched it. Unfortunately, my older brother liked to watch it though. CJ, I would say at least once you should watch it all the way through from start to finish. I will let you all know if you do want to watch It's a Wonderful Life. There are several ways you can get access to it. Give me just a minute. Let me get back to the main page where I was at. Let's see. Hang on.
Well, they show it every year on NBC or something like that, don't they?
Yeah, but if you don't want to wait around for that, like I said, there are several ways you can watch it.
Probably Turner Classic Movies as well, I imagine, right?
Here's the funny thing. Well, you could probably get maybe on the main account or whatever. Okay, hang on. I gotta get back all the way to the main. Come on, keep going. A little more. Oh crap! Went too far. Okay, hang on here. All right, I'm back to where I wanted to be. Okay. There we go. This is where I wanted to be. All right. Okay, hang on. Overview. All right. You can, let's see. You can watch it on Tubi, which is a free streaming app.
Yeah.
If you want to rent it, you can rent it on YouTube for $2.99. Google Play TV, movies and TV, you can also rent it there for $2.99. Let's see, Vudu, Apple TV. That's all the places that you can watch it. So,
All right. It's
but
on
yeah,
Apple
CJ,
TV?
huh?
It's really on Apple TV?
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I got that, so I guess I can always watch it on there.
Yeah. And I'll bring up Sir John's comment here. My culture shock looking back at all movies, there were a lot of movies with made up countries and a guy who knew karate working for a government, etc. Yeah, Sir John,
Yeah.
that is true. And yes, CJ,
And
every time teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. Yeah, that's the one you're thinking of.
I would guess, like most people you like at least the first two Home Alone movies, right?
The second one's okay. I guess I'm maybe a little more of a purist. I like the first one is by far my all time favorite.
Oh yeah.
Just a little fun, little update, heads up and everything. Next Thursday night, I'll actually be doing a watch along for Home Alone. I'll be doing it over on Twitch.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to just, as I said before you came in, number one, Christmas time, I always like to do stuff that's more upbeat, more positive, because, as I say, Christmas is one of my favorite times of year. So, and I like to do stuff in that same vein. So tonight we're talking about What It's a Wonderful Life. Next week, I'll be doing a watch party for Home Alone. I'll be doing another watch party for the live action version of Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the one with Jim Carrey. Yes, CJ, Home Alone is on Disney Plus, so I can certainly rewatch that. Yeah. So, and I've got a few other things planned uh, over the next several weeks and everything leading up to Christmas. So, but I think the reason we're drawn to movies like this is, well, number one for yourself and myself here, it does remind us of a simpler time in our lives. It reminds us of a time when the world wasn't as complicated as it is now. And it even it gives us a somewhat of a snapshot into how the world was before we came into it. I mean, this movie starts off with George Bailey, I think at age 7 in the year, well, he
And
was born in
when was it made
1919.
in 51 or so?
No, it was made in 46.
Oh, okay. Oh,
It's a
in the
Wonderful Life
40s.
was made. Yeah, it was made in 1946. Yeah,
Okay. Wow.
it is. Yeah,
Okay.
like I said, this is it. Quite literally came out a year after World War II had ended, pretty much. So,
Wow.
um,
Okay. I didn't realize it was that old. Whatever.
oh yeah, yeah. Number one is it is exceedingly old.
Yeah.
Well, and as
I mean, probably the oldest. Well, it's not a Christmas movie, but Wizard of Oz was 30s, right?
uh, yes, it is definitely 30s. Um, I'll bring up your comment real quick, CJ, and then I'll get to that. And this in time where we didn't have to have adult worries. Yeah, CJ, very true. Yeah, give me 1 second. I know it was in the 1930s. I just can't remember a specific year.
Yeah. I want to say 37 or somewhere in there.
Actually, 39. You weren't far
Oh,
off.
okay. Okay. So
Yeah.
the end of the 30s then. Okay.
Mm-hmm. 1939 specifically.
Okay.
It was one of the earliest, quite literally one of the earliest um colorized films.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it starts out black and white, and then when she goes to Oz, that's
Well,
when it changes to color.
well, actually, here's the interesting thing. It wasn't so much black and white. Number one, it was more of it was what they called sepia tone.
Okay. Well, yeah, because I think you could still see um her. Well, maybe not. I don't know if her slippers were still red in the black and white part or not. I'm trying to remember, but
Well, she doesn't get the slippers until she gets to Oz, so no,
I
they
mean,
wouldn't
but
be.
at the end of the movie, she goes back, and then I think then it goes back
Oh,
to black and white. If I'm right.
whew. Dang, number one, that's a brain scratcher right there. I'd actually have to watch the end of the movie because
Yeah,
I don't
I'm
honestly
pretty sure it goes
recall.
back to black and white, and then that's when you can
Yeah,
kind of
yeah. Well, yeah, it does go
semi
to back.
notice the ruby slippers on her or whatever.
That's a possibility.
But I could be wrong about that. It's been a while since I've seen that too. But
Yeah, it has been a very long time since I've watched Wizard of Oz. Truth be told, I mean, I don't get me wrong, I love the movie. It's one of the few musicals from old Hollywood that I will watch and I do enjoy. And for me, there are some musicals, old school musicals that I really do enjoy. There are others
yeah,
that I don't particularly care for.
yeah. So are you looking forward to this West Side Story
Oh, the
remake or
West
no?
Side Story.
Because of
To be
Spielberg doing it or no?
to be truthful, number one, I've seen the trailer for it. I've seen the trailer for it a few times now, and I have never seen the original.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah,
And
you got to watch the original first.
I'm not necessarily on the fence. I would just have to make the time, and I think it's
Yeah,
on a limited run or something. So,
yeah,
but
probably
it's definitely piqued
because
my
the original
interest.
has Natalie Wood, if I'm right, in it as the female.
I think so. Yeah, as Maria. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
And I'll bring
pretty
up
sure she's
George's.
in it
Yeah,
as the
I think you're right.
main female. Yeah.
Yeah.
From the trying to think, is she? I'm guessing she's a shark, and the other guys are jets, obviously.
I'm not 100% sure. Like I said, I have never seen it, so I
Okay.
honestly don't know.
Well, they're from opposite.
Yeah,
Obviously.
it's got a touch of Romeo.
Ge-
It's got a little bit of the Romeo and Juliet story in it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I know exactly I know what you mean. So, and I've got George's comment here. It's a Wonderful Life and review window got me into movies from the 40s and 50s back in middle school. The only old movie I watched the only old movies I watched were Wizard of Oz and really old Disney movies before that. I'll bring up the comment here, George. Original West Side Story was great and I like it a lot, but I have to make the time to rewatch it. Long musicals
Yeah.
usually
It's a
aren't.
Yeah, it's a good story. The
Yeah.
original is no, yeah,
hmm
the remake. Yeah, it depends how woke they go with it, I guess, or whatever. But
I
I
don't
guess we'll see.
see. I don't see Spielberg doing anything stupid like that. I think this is going to be kind of Spielberg's swan song, so to speak, for him as a director because he's not getting any younger. Okay. And I think he wants to go out on something that he truly loves. And I have the impression that this is something that he really wants to make the best and he wants to do a faithful adaptation. I don't think there's going to be any modern stuff in terms of any ideologies or anything like that. Spielberg's never really done that in any of his work, truthfully. So I'll bring up your other comment here, George. Just 1 second. Usually aren't my thing. I prefer the shorter ones like Wizard of Oz, Singing in the Rain, and Willy Wonka. George, yeah, I can. You 2 out of 3. I'm with you on that one because I've never seen Singing in the Rain all the way through. I know that one. I know the one bit, the one act and everything or whatever from the movie, but I've never seen Singing in the Rain all the way through. But I'm pretty sure it's on HBO Max because HBO Max has their deal with Turner Classic Movies. Well, and I'll tell you all something right now. Um, ever since I did my reviews for like the Universal Monsters and the review I did with my friend Zach Leary and everything, Mr. Bah Humbug, who was in here earlier. I'm going to be putting together a new series of reviews, and I'm going to be collabing with another channel on that. I've still got I work out the details with them, but I'm gonna be going. They're gonna be called ultra retro reviews. Um, I'm gonna be covering movies like this, like It's a Wonderful Life, and so on. And that's gonna be something that I'm gonna be starting next year because I enjoy doing the stuff from my childhood, but I realize that my childhood involves more than just the 80s and 90s. And something that my friend Zach said and everything was we don't, we shouldn't let these great old classic movies and the people who worked on these directors and actors and actresses be forgotten. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to be starting this new series and everything probably sometime next year, along with some other things I'm getting lined up. Obviously, for those of you who know, I'm working on um, putting together the cast for my Star Wars project and so on. But I like talking about these movies and these older movies, especially because they were just as much a part of my childhood as the other stuff I've discussed on here on my channel. And I don't see I recently got an old Shadow of Doubt on DVD. George, that's awesome, dude. Truly. Glad you're able to find that one. So, I've never actually seen it myself, but hey, anytime you can find one of those old classics, I will tell you. As I was going through Frank Capra's IMDb, it popped up that he had directed the old Arsenic and Old Lace, and I had picked up a copy of it on DVD about a year or a year and a half ago. But here's a little other tidbit that you all may not know. When I was going to college for my seminary degree, I had to take some classes outside of that, to round out my gen ed credits and so on. But I got involved in the drama club at the university, and I had the opportunity to perform in a few plays. And one of the first roles I ever did, because I had never ever in my life acted on stage to any size of a crowd. But the very first play I had two minor roles, two minor parts, but I was happy, was for a stage production of Arsenic and Old Lace. And I did several other plays where I was on the crew when me and the missus, when she came to the university where I was at, we worked on crew together. Oftentimes, there were a few times I was on cast, she was on crew. But I love talking about this thing called theater, and I love talking about film. And classic movies are as much a part of my childhood as for a lot of us. Obviously, they are as well, because we all grew up watching these old black and white films, both the well-known ones and the least lesser known ones alike. And I want to share my enthusiasm, share my knowledge, both what I have up here and what I can learn that I can bring to you all, and just have a good time discussing these things, just like we have tonight. I know we've gone off a little bit of a tangent in terms of the main topic, that, of course, being It's a Wonderful Life. But you can't really talk about this movie isolated, because it is part of a bigger tapestry. And it is very much a cultural icon in terms of the story itself, because it is somewhat of through the majority of the film, it is a very a very downbeat story. Because you see George Bailey as a young, optimistic young man, and you just slowly see life beat him up, beat him down, and him just become very bitter and very angry and very isolated. But he doesn't realize all of the people around him that are pulling for him. And that is a truly remarkable thing, because nowadays you don't see that sort of thing happen much anymore. Except in very rare, extreme cases. And a movie like this reminds us that we should look out for our fellow man, whether they are familiar or stranger to us. And particularly at this time of year, as I said, when the holidays are upon us. And not everybody has particularly fond memories of the holidays. In some instances, we have very downbeat memories or experiences of the holidays. But a movie like It's a Wonderful Life reminds us that we are never, ever truly alone. Whether you are surrounded by family and friends, or if you do believe in a higher power, whatever you may call the higher power, myself, I call it simply God. And I think the fact that this movie does address the concept of faith, granted in a very small way, but in a very impactful way. And the fact that Clarence, the bumbler that he is, the fact that he has been an angel, or at least a guardian angel, for almost 200 years, and he still hasn't gotten his wings. And he's given this assignment to go in and save George Bailey. But in a lot of ways, George saved Clarence and helped Clarence finally achieve his goal and get his wings and become a full-fledged angel. So you could say that for Clarence, it's a wonderful afterlife, because he finally got what he had always been seeking for so long. Number one, you still there, bud?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to run off at the mouth there and everything. So, any thoughts you want to share? So the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said basically about it. I mean, yeah, it's a pretty unique situation when he realizes, that nobody knows him anymore. And yeah, that's the part of the movie, where he really freaks out, obviously, the most when he realizes, especially his wife doesn't recognize him, and everything. So,
Well, yeah, and the fact is, George it finally snaps in his head when he realizes that no one knows him, no one recognizes him. He is completely isolated, and he sees just how terrible of a place Bedford Falls has become, all because he wasn't around to keep Mr. Potter's schemes and lust for power in check. Instead, Potter was able to run roughshod over Bedford Falls and turn it into a very sleazy, a very dour and depressing little town. I mean, you see Bedford Falls at various stages throughout the film, and it's a wonderful little town in the main timeline where George Bailey exists. But when you see it minus George Bailey, it's a place I don't think many people would want to live, because it is just an absolute beacon for corruption and greed and just a downright rotten life for everyone. And when George realizes that he is needed that he is wanted, that his existence does mean something. And he goes back. He convinces Clarence. He's like, Clarence, I need to go back. You were right. I was wrong. Yes, George, a town of misery. Absolutely. And when Clarence is like, okay, you can go back. And you see that very iconic scene of George Bailey running down Main Street, screaming at the top of his lungs, Merry Christmas, Bedford Falls, and saying Merry Christmas to all the stores and everything else up and down Main Street. And he runs all the way back to his house, the house that him and his wife and their kids are living in. And then you see that very iconic scene where everybody in the town starts to come in and pulls their money together to help a man who's always been there for him. And of course, you hear that iconic line that CJ was mentioning earlier with their youngest daughter, where teacher says every time a bell rings, an angel gets his wings. And George looks up and gives Clarence a wink because he knows now that Clarence is a full-fledged angel. So in a lot of ways, not only did Clarence save George, but George saved Clarence. He was just the right case. He was exactly what Clarence needed, and Clarence was exactly what George needed to be reminded of his faith in humanity. And that in itself is one of the other great messages of this film. And it's why it will, for as long as I'm alive, it will always be it'll be a yearly tradition for me to watch it at Christmas time. And for those of you that are here live, and those of you that catch us on the replay, if you have never watched It's a Wonderful Life, I would recommend just once. If you never watch it again, but at least once, sit down, whether it's by yourself or with your family or whoever, and watch this movie. Because it does have a very powerful, but also a very positive message in it. And it is well worth your time. So. Anyway. Well, number one, I think I'm going to go and wrap up. So if you got any final thoughts, I'm going to let you have the floor, and then we'll call it a night.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, obviously the ending is classic part of it, but then I like kind of I think it's towards the beginning where him and his wife fall in the pool, right? When it opens up.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I'm pretty sure that. Yeah, I think you're thinking the same. Yeah, we're thinking of the same movie. Yes, the gymnasium actually has a pool built into it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that scene very well. Yeah, it's been a long time since I started to watch it last night, but unfortunately I didn't get a chance to finish it. But thankfully I remember it well enough because I watched it so many times that I could work my way through it and everything. So, but yeah, I do remember that scene. That it is a corker. So,
Okay. Yeah, that's all for me.
okay. Well, everybody, like I said, I think we're going to go and wrap up for the evening, but I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. I hope you all enjoyed the stream. And of course, leave your thoughts down below with anything me or number one brought up. And of course, smash that like button. Share this out with all your friends, especially at this time of year. And particularly if they've never heard of this movie. or if they're interested in a film like It's a Wonderful Life. Tell them to check out the stream and then go check out the movie. Because regardless of the time of year, It's a Wonderful Life is a wonderful movie to watch, regardless. I do want to let you all know I will be back tomorrow afternoon with the Council of Ones. We'll be doing our review of Babylon 5 Season 4 with the episode In Game. And that'll be at our normal time of 3:30 Central. And then this Saturday night, I'll be going live at 7 p.m. and we'll be starting a new series of reviews over the next 3 weeks. And with the 20th anniversary of the release of the Lord of the Rings films over the next 3 Saturdays, I will be bringing you all my reviews, my thoughts, my discussion on the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, the Two Towers, and Return of the King. And those will start at 7 p.m. unless otherwise announced. So, but and also I will be going live Sunday afternoon, bringing you all my thoughts on the latest episode of Hawkeye, and that'll be at 2:30 Central Time. So, be sure to tune in for that. And thank you again for all of you that tuned in this evening. I hope you all enjoyed the stream. I'll see you all tomorrow afternoon. And until next time, these are the ambassadors. Signing off.